Hello. So, how's my treasure? Let's see.
Have you been here long? In California, I mean?
Not too long, but I've already seen most of it owing to my work. I'm a trucker.
Our company's always looking for good drivers. You looking to work for us?
Mr. Armstrong, do you know if your friend had any enemies?
Ah! Help!
In the truck, quick!
You read the articles about the road killings and robberies by Monica Delancey?
Midnight on the hour. You're almost home.
What is my destiny? Is to live for eternity. Like it way moving, baby, let's get it on. Let's get it on.
We're moving, we're jumping, we're laughing, we're bumping. Let me tell you something. Gotta party, party.
High hopes, high energy, high expectations, how it's gonna be. City to city, town to town. The dues you pay when you laying it down. High time. Out on the road again.
Now I must take my leave, as I have a very important thing to do. Yes, a very important thing.
Happy poking.
Excuse me?
Nothing. Never mind. I was talking to myself.
SoftLab NSK is a Siberian developer of virtual reality training simulators and television broadcasting hardware and software, founded in the 1980s by a group of scientists with experience in the Soviet space program. It is also essentially the creator of the truck simulator genre. In the 90s, they made simulators for train yards and the Mir space station. But the path to using those talents for making games started with an American organization called the Other 90%, whose president, Ron Gordon, was the head of Atari in the 1970s. The Other 90% marketed a device called the Mind Drive. An overpriced plastic doohickey you put on your finger that is supposed to let you control your computer with your mind. The consumer version of this would let you control games, of course, and those games were developed by SoftLab. Now, how did a man who was the head of Atari in the 70s link up with a Siberian developer of space station simulators?
You know, hooking myself up to all this equipment makes me feel like some sort of messed up science experiment. And that kind of makes sense, considering that Ron Gordon, the ex-president of Atari from the 70s and the founder of this company, said the technology for the Mind Drive was originally developed during the Cold War by former US government scientists working on secret mind control projects in Siberia.
Oh, well, moving on. SoftLab's curious collaborations wouldn't stop there, because around 1997 they followed up Mind Drive by working with South Korean television broadcasting hardware and software company Darum Co. to create a full cockpit driving simulator set in a virtual recreation of Seoul, and deploying that same technology to make an arcade racing game. These projects never got proper names, as far as I can tell, and very little other information about them is to be found online, so I have my doubts that they were ever commercially deployed. But the foundation had been laid, and in 1998 SoftLab released what is, basically, the common ancestor of all modern truck simulators. The creatively titled Truckers, better known in the West as Hard Truck Road to Victory. Building on the legacy of logistic sims such as the cross-country USA games of the 80s, and presumably the 3D tools developed for Darumco's driving simulator, Hard Truck lets you haul cargo across various environments and, in what will become a trend for Soft Lab's trucking games, places a heavy emphasis on racing in particular. It's a neat little game actually. It's got this cool menu system where you drive your truck around a garage to pick up cargo, buy upgrades and choose your race. There's tire and brake wear, cargo has both weight and volume, there's visual damage, and it has some truly spectacular rain effects for 1998, which only show up in software rendering mode no less. The Trials map in particular is very entertaining, showing us what a 90s version of Mud Runner would look like. It is, unfortunately, a very difficult game to get running. It's not available on any digital storefront, and I spent hours trying to get it to display right on every single virtual machine configuration I could come up with, and even my real hardware Windows XP machine, resulting in failure every single time. Except one, I was able to play it, the whole damn thing, looking and running perfectly fine, and I would love to tell you exactly which VM I used and in what configuration, and I forgot. There's been quite a span of time between playing it and writing this script, and I just don't remember. I think it might have been 86 box running Windows 98, but when I try to launch it now I get this, so I guess we'll never know. I really am sorry about this, because I think it's a game worth playing, so if any of you get it running, please share with the class. In the year 2000, Soft Lab would give us Truckers 2, released in the West as Hard Truck 2, naturally, and quickly followed it up with a revised and enhanced edition commonly known as Hard Truck 2 King of the Road, or in some regions, very confusingly, Rig and Roll. We are starting to see the signs of trademark troubles developing around the Hard Truck name. But if Hard Truck 1 is the common ancestor of truck sims, the thing all the way up on the evolutionary tree that kind of looks similar if you squint a little, the entity that you know you're related to but can't really relate with, then Hard Truck 2 is the grandfather of the modern truck sim. Old Pappy King of the Road. A lot more of the features that would become common and standard started here. It set the blueprint that all truck simulators still follow to this day. It brings over some neat stuff of the first game, like cargo having weight and volume, and expands upon the racing, but it also introduces so much more. First, you got yourself a dynamic open world with clients and destinations and fully modeled traffic. It's not that big, but it's pretty varied and well dressed for the first of its kind, and even rewards exploration with secret roads and shortcuts. You get a wide selection of trucks with detailed interiors, and can even buy vans and cars to drive if you want to keep it small scale. You have to manage your fuel consumption, and can of course hire other drivers to expand your trucking empire. You even get a CB radio to talk to other truckers for tips and hints, or, more importantly, to bribe the cops.
Stop the vehicle at once, or else we shoot.
The rain effect, if this is indeed what it's supposed to look like, is quite a downgrade. But other than that, the game is a huge improvement over the first, and even does some things better than Rig and Roll would end up doing. If I had owned this game in the early 2000s, I could easily see myself sinking dozens, if not hundreds of hours into it. It even has bandits. If you're interested in checking this one out for yourself, you're in luck, because you can just buy it on GOG and it runs almost without any problems on modern PCs. The Hard Truck name would go on to have its own separate life beyond Soft Lab through publishers and rights holders Buka Entertainment and 1C Company. First as an alternative name for the game Ex Machina, released in the West as Hard Truck Apocalypse, and its follow-ups Hard Truck Apocalypse Rise of Clans and Hard Truck Apocalypse Arcade. These are post-apocalyptic games with bizarre stories. I've played the first one and did not particularly enjoy it, but I'm sure they have fans out there somewhere. They do some interesting things, but I'd hesitate to call them truck simulators. They're more vehicular combat trading games. Kind of like Elite, but instead of space, it's a height map wasteland where all the NPCs have a plot reason for wearing weird masks that conveniently don't need to be animated when they speak. The other life began and ended with the 2002 release of Hard Truck 18 Wheels of Steel, the first in a long line of 18 Wheels of Steel games created by Czech developer SES Software, who would eventually go on to find great success with a little game called Euro Truck Simulator 2. Though this series is connected to Soft Lab's games only by what is presumably a publisher-mandated piece of branding that was quickly thrown away, I have little doubt that SCS took a lot of inspiration from Hard Truck 2 as a foundation for the 18 Wheels of Steel series and its follow-ups, which means that every time you play Euro Truck 2 or American Truck Simulator, there's still a little bit of Hard Truck 2 in there. But despite the huge success of the first two games, and the fortune that the truck simulator genre would bring to SCS Software in particular, Softlab's own Truckers/Hard Truck franchise would not see the same glory. A third game in the series was announced in 2003, and just as Hard Truck 2 was a great leap over the first game, so this was meant to be another significant step up. Truckers 3 Conquest of America would feature a massive and detailed 1:10 replica of the entirety of California and a little bit of Nevada, with over 2,000 kilometers of roads, more trucks, more management simulation, more racing, and a thrilling storyline with fully voiced cutscenes. Members of the team even went on a trip to California to take thousands of reference pictures so they could accurately model the game's world and, get a nice holiday out of it too. I should note here that an invaluable source for history on the game has been the Rig and Roll fan wiki, which I had the machine translate from the original Russian. The wiki doesn't cite most of its sources, however, so while I've attempted to corroborate as much of the info as I could, I can't guarantee that some of the stuff on there isn't just made up, or wrong, or even mistranslated. This is the kind of game where the information is out there on the internet, but it's archived deep within Polish or Ukrainian forums that aren't as accessible for research as I'd like them to be. In spite of its reception, Rig and Roll has quite a dedicated following, and unlike some of the games I've covered, there's lots of people out there who know more about it than I ever will. They just don't speak English or make YouTube videos. So forgive me for any important omissions or errors, and what a wonderful opportunity for you to correct me in the comments. Truckers 3 Conquest of America, to be released in the West as Rig and Roll, having ditched the Hard Truck name entirely, was first exhibited at E3 2003 in a not all too impressive trailer showing not much more than some trucks moving through a static environment and angled shots of building models that are almost too obviously not placed in the world yet. In 2004, PC Gamer reported it would be released in spring of the next year. The game's official website would upload occasional development updates from project lead and driving force of Softlab's trucking games, Igor Belago. They promised a beta version of the game to be released in 2007. It didn't. Finally, after years of delays, compromise, and strife with the publisher, Truckers 3 was rushed into Russian stores in 2009. Rushed. After 8 whole years of development. Some planned features, such as pedestrians, illegal cargo, and unspecified multiplayer content were cut. Game development is a harsh mistress, after all. Then, after a year of translating and re-recording all the voices into English, the game was finally released in the West in 2010. Rig and Roll reviewed kind of okay. 6s all around. A lot of the complaints stem from the game being too repetitive and monotonous, which is ironically exactly the same thing that would catapult Euro Truck Sim 2 to massive success several years later once these kinds of job simulators got more mainstream appreciation. Funny how things change. Customer reviews were less forgiving. The biggest grievances seemed to be with the technical performance, bugs, and the way the trucks controlled. By 2009, SCS Software had released 7 18 Wheels of Steel games and the first Euro Truck Simulator, and had thoroughly iterated on and fine-tuned the definition of the truck sim. Softlab no longer had the first mover advantage, and negative comparisons were easy to make. It just didn't look as good or play as nice as its competitors, did not give players what they expected, and had been overhyped for far too long. Several add-ons for the game were planned, and at least one was sort of released. The Big Races expansion added a couple of new settlements and roads to the map, a handful of new race-tuned trucks, increased the amount of side quests, fixed bugs, and introduced a brand new tournament that massively expands the game's racing feature. This add-on was released in the West under the name of Monster Cup only through a particular gold edition of the game published exclusively in Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, apparently without the consent of Softlab. Do not be fooled like I was. The Monster Cup add-on is not available on the Black Lime Games release of Rig and Roll Gold Edition, which is just a standard game bundled with logistics management sim Freight Tycoon Inc. Getting my hands on the Monster Cup add-on just for the sake of making this video as thorough as possible was a bit of a hassle, to say the least. Another bigger add-on was teased in the game through billboards, Las Vegas. It was never released anywhere. Tragically, according to the wiki, it was complete and ready to ship, but publisher 1C Company threw in the towel, either believing the sales didn't justify its release, or from just being tired of working with Softlab. A Truckers 4 was supposedly in development, or at least in early planning, this time set in Britain. This is according to the wiki with no links to verify, but I imagine it would have been a scaled down reproduction of the entire island and have even worse voice acting somehow. But if SoftLab couldn't even get its entirely finished expansion properly released, a sequel had no chance of being delivered. Unlike most of the developers I cover, SoftLab is still chugging along, making virtual reality simulator things, interactive expositions, and especially TV broadcasting hardware and software. At some point they produced a side-scrolling 2D tower defense game called iRoam, for which I can find no release date or platform at all. I can only presume it was never brought to market. Either way, the failure of Rig and Roll, released far past its original planned date and almost certainly way past budget, would signify that the days of SoftLab making big commercial 3D games were over. Rig and Roll, also known as Rig and Roll Cutthroat Highway, also known as Rig and Roll King of the Road, also known as Rig and Roll Truck Simulator, also known as
Rig and Roll, die Truck-Simulation.
Also known as Rig and Roll Gold Edition, includes Freight Tycoon Game 2 Game Pack Truck Simulation, also known as Truck Simulator, Rig and Roll with Monster Cup Add-on, also known as
Дальнобойщики 3. Покорение Америки.
and not at all related to Rigs of Rods, Snake Rattle and Roll, or is a truck simulator. You know, the kind of game where the vast majority of your time will be spent in a truck, on the open road, hauling various types of cargo, navigating through traffic, and just trying to make some cash delivering things from A to B. You can upgrade your truck in a number of ways, from basic stuff like engines and brakes to useful additions such as GPS and rear view cameras, and even pimp it out with a comprehensive cosmetic system that lets you change the paint, wheels, hood ornament, and even the interior trim. Just like a lot of other truck sims, you also manage a trucking company on the side and can hire other drivers, buy and upgrade more trucks for them, and in general have to keep them happy while squeezing as much profit out of them as possible to grow your organization. You'll even see them driving around on the roads doing jobs for you. The trucks you can drive are all modeled after real trucks, if that kind of thing matters to you, although they're not all officially licensed, so a few will have fake brand names. While on the road, you have to do all the basic trucking things, such as managing your fuel levels, repairing and doing basic maintenance on your rig, being careful not to damage your cargo, and in general, keeping to the laws of the road. If you don't, well, let's just say there's consequences. Because while Rig and Roll in some ways is just a standard truck sim, it does some things that no other truck sim before or since has. Some of these things are features I wish were standard in current day truck sims, and others are things that are weird in ways both frustrating and endearing. Going back to the traffic laws, for instance, if you break the law, your money doesn't just get taken off your account while you're driving. You will always be stopped by the cops. There are essentially two types of offenses that can trigger a response from the police, although the end result is in all cases a classic American velvet glove arrest. You do not get detained and your truck does not get impounded, but you will gain a fine and lose time. The minor offenses are things that a police car needs to see you do to start chasing you, like driving on the wrong side of the road or driving at night without your headlights on. But crashing into traffic, for instance, will lead to an immediate reaction no matter what. Either way, police chases are entirely unavoidable and inescapable. You cannot outrun the pigs in your big rig, no matter how skilled a truck driver you are. They will keep spawning forever until you stop. In fact, trying to outrun the cops will almost certainly lead to more traffic collisions, which will only increase the fine and the amount of damage you'll need to repair once it's all over. As a result, if you hear police sirens, the best tactic is to just pull over as soon as you see a cop car in the rear view. The siren itself is ambient noise, indicating the cops are after you, and doesn't actually come from their cars directly. Sometimes you'll have to wait a bit for them to spawn. The exception to this tactic is when you're close enough to your destination that you don't want to lose out on the race bonus, so just let yourself get arrested after you've delivered your cargo. Because the racing is another one of those weird things this game does. It's not every time you pick up some cargo from a warehouse that it's also a race, just almost every time. So when you leave the warehouse with your trailer attached, you won't be alone. About a dozen or so competitor trucks will spawn ahead of you and behind you, and arriving at your destination before them will give you a nice cash bonus. Because you don't all start at the same time, this part of the game reminds me of classic arcade games like Ridge Racer, where the challenge is to overtake every car ahead of you before you reach the finish line. This is the only time in history someone has compared Rig and Roll to Ridge Racer, and I take full responsibility.
Where are you going in such a hurry?
The whole race element of the game is one of those things that feels a bit outdated in the gameplay design. SoftLab was still so captivated by the racing components of the first two games that they didn't realize that by 2009 this wasn't what truck simmers wanted anymore. Upgrading your truck for speed, including getting a sick and entirely realistic nitro booster, and learning how to most efficiently weave your way through traffic breaks some of the immersion and zen-like experience of being a trucker on the open road. And to be honest, the racing is rather trivial anyway. I very rarely did not come in first. Luckily, the one thing the police don't care about at all is speeding. And you will need to speed, because the world is pretty damn huge. It's constructed at a much larger scale than the SCS software games, which also means the highway interchanges are realistically sized, and that it will take several hours to make it from the bottom of the map to the top, even while disregarding the non-existent speed limits and burning up your fuel with copious boosting. Not that there isn't a whole lot to distract you on the map during your journey. Besides traffic and cops, the roads you navigate are challenging, the cities and settlements detailed, and the environments varied. Whether it's the concrete chaos of Los Angeles or the winding mountain roads between Sacramento and Reno, there's always something to see and things to do. You know what Rig and Roll has that is lacking in every single other truck sim I've encountered? Truck stops. Honest to goodness, truck stops. At these, you can of course refuel and repair, but you can also take a quick dive into a roadside bar or have yourself a little nap at one of California's many wonderful motels. The sleeping mechanic is only there to skip time, and even though every single truck you can buy has a sleeper cab, you can't sleep in your truck, but doesn't it add so much to the real trucker vibes? Well, kinda. The truck stops are absolutely gargantuan fields of empty asphalt with just a handful of buildings spread around, and not a single other vehicle in them. For some reason, in all the years of development, SoftLab couldn't be bothered to plop a few truck models in all these parking spots. But the mere presence of truck stops is an example of how Rig and Roll tries to do more with the trucker lifestyle than other truck sims. Because while the vast majority of standard missions will have you carrying cargo between warehouses, you can also pick up hitchhikers.
You got that right. My train stopped in the middle of nowhere and we sat there for about an hour.
Small cargo for your passenger seat.
Ow, a voodoo doll! Well, I never believed these things actually work.
And trailers parked on the side of the road.
Hey man, give me a hand, will you? I'm stuck here and the trailer's full of perishables.
These side quests can be initiated in a number of ways, such as hearing about them on the radio.
Bread Motors Corporation officials report that construction of the Bread Automotive Group test site is nearing completion. To build this 4,300-acre site, the corporation has invested over $60 million. The new Bread Motors California Proving Ground is situated in Mojave Desert, 100 miles from Los Angeles, and consists of a 6.4-mile oval track, a 2.75-mile horseshoe track, a 3.3-mile mountain track, and several test courses with various types of asphalt coating. Michael Swirlberg, the corporation's vice president, expects the new test site to become a crucial foothold in the expansion of Bread Motors to the global market, and especially in its consolidation in California. Now that all the principal construction work is complete, the site needs to be landscaped and cleared of construction waste before it will finally be opened.
Getting called for job offers.
Am I speaking to Nick Armstrong?
You are?
My name is Mary Jones Caltrack Company. I want to offer you a job.
What's the job?
We have a shipment of computers waiting to be taken from the airport in Mojave to a railroad junction in the LA suburb.
Or learning about them from reading the newspaper in a bar. Each of these side quests, and there are dozens and dozens of them, come with their own little story, characters, voiced cutscenes, and goals. Many of them are pretty long quest chains, and all of them add so much character to the trucking experience. Here it is, a truck sim that actually acknowledges the existence of sex workers.
I'm Pat, by the way, but they usually call me Trixie.
Who's they?
Those who are allowed, my dear. My boys probably can't wait to see me. You can tag along if you want. You like my boy.
No thanks. I'm not interested in boys.
Ha, you're funny. A driver like you should be, if he wants to make good money at least.
And then that same game has you bringing a live octopus to an aquarium where there's a possibly fatal altercation with a visitor, whereupon you're asked to pick it up and deliver it to a cult that worships it as a god.
Yes, I asked you to deliver an octopus for our aquarium, and now we need to get rid of it fast.
So what do you want me to do?
Thankfully, after all the hoopla the journalists made over the tiniest little incident, you know what I mean, right?
I think all of California's heard by now.
Yeah, so after that, some weird folks contacted us and offered to buy the octopus. Yeah, they call themselves the followers of Thulhu, or something like that. I can't imagine why they need it, but the money they're offering is very good.
These side quests are fun, interesting, and really fill out the world. They're a nice diversion from regular monotonous hauling, and are a great world-building complement to the game's main story.
I've brought the octopus to the place.
Okay, do you see anyone? It was agreed that they would take the trailer from there. Oh wait, I just received a text from them. Let's see. Let the mortal leave his divine presence at the crossroads and be gone. There's also a message from the bank that my money's been transferred?
And what a story it is, my friends. We'll get into the details of it later, but let's just say that it's one hell of a ride with a payoff that's absolutely worth the effort.
I work for the government.
Most of it progresses the way you would expect from a regular video game, but some of the mission design is so opaque that it is actually impossible to finish the main story without a guide. So big huge thanks to Pazur76 on Game Pressure for having written one. This video would not be possible without it. Mission markers exist only on the oversized on-screen map, not in the world itself, so knowing where you need to park your truck to start or end the mission is sometimes difficult, and the actual mission requirements are poorly communicated. One quest needs you to be at a certain spot minutes before the time runs out, not earlier, but doesn't tell you exactly when. Nearly every mission has a timer, even just to get to the location where the mission starts, and if you're too late, the main story just stops. With no way to pick it back up. You just continue the game in free roam mode now. It's very well possible that your truck isn't fast enough to complete some of these quests on time, especially in the early game, and then you're just boned. Missions will just start out of nowhere, often through getting a call from somebody, meaning you're very likely to have to drop whatever you're doing, whether it's a standard cargo haul or carrying a hitchhiker, in order to make it to the quest marker in time. This always comes with some sort of penalty, like a fine for dropping your cargo, or permanently ending a multi-stage side quest with a hitchhiker, leaving that little sub-story entirely unresolved.
Taylor speaking?
Nick Trucking to Capital Motors, can you hear me?
Perfectly clear. What is it?
Heard you had some trouble and thought you might have a job for a trucker. You know, transporting your cars.
You're a little late for that. We did need a driver, but we already found one, so there are no vacancies.
Okay, thanks.
All of this means that to get through the main story, which as I said is worth it, requires following the guide thoroughly and having minimal interaction with all of these other fun things you can do in the world. Removing the time limits, or maybe just adding the ability to redo failed missions, would make the whole thing feel a lot more organic, immersive, and playful. Another downside of the way the story works is that most of it takes place around the bottom half of the map, making exploration of Northern California inadvisable. Say you're all the way up here in Alturas, and you get a call from a detective that you're being pulled in for questioning in a murder case all the way down in Oxnard. I don't even know if you get enough time on the clock to make it there successfully. And even if you do, what a long drive. And then along that drive down, you might be called by a buddy for a side quest that sounds quirky and interesting, but is too much of a detour, and you'll have to reject it permanently.
I'm interested in bigger jobs right now.
And you think, well, maybe you can get some extra income by carrying a load of dishwashing liquid all the way down there, but do you even have access to a warehouse near Alturas? Because the truck company management part of the game is quite elaborate and a little convoluted. You can only haul trailers from warehouses that you have access to, which you gain by buying a branch in a particular region in the state. The amount of warehouses you're allowed to have is capped by your revenue, which means you can't just save up and buy every branch. You can increase your revenue by hiring drivers, giving them trucks that aren't too crappy, and tweaking their sliders for maximum profit. Drivers will leave your company if you don't pay enough and have preferences for certain kinds of jobs, like long haul or races. The end goal of the management part of the game is simply to buy every single branch and become the biggest transport company in the state, at which point you'll be given a cash prize that doesn't matter because you're already the biggest transport company in the state. Until then, it's important to keep a healthy cash balance because fines can lead to repossessions. I lost a $60,000 branch due to a $600 traffic fine I couldn't pay. Total bankruptcy will lead to a game over, as will death. Yep, wrecking your truck will lead to an explosion that you will not survive. It's a rare occurrence, to be fair, but the most common fault you can get from messing up your truck is the brakes not working, which can pose a problem when you're rushing a trailer full of live cattle downhill, boosting all the way, recklessly weaving through traffic, and then hit a 90-degree turn. So the easiest way to keep your truck in tip-top shape? Not making regular stops at a garage, but just hitting escape and choosing road surface in the menu. For a fee, your truck will be fully repaired, put upright if flipped, and they even give you a little fuel to help you on your way. This is again one of those immersion breaking things. I ended up only going to the garage for upgrades and cosmetics. So that's the general playing experience of Rig and Roll if you choose to do the story, which you absolutely should do at least once in your life. You can also forego the open world experience entirely and select specific routes to drive in the main menu, but I wouldn't bother with that. In between missions, you are hauling cargo between warehouses, maybe if you feel like taking the risk, picking up a hitchhiker, upgrading your truck, managing your company, and generally just filling up your bank account. Then someone calls you to start a mission and you drop everything you're doing and rush to the starting location, do the quest, and then go back to cruise in California. You will almost always want to have the map pulled up, even though it takes up nearly half the screen. The best way to play is, of course, with a force feedback wheel of some kind. It really does make it more fun. I didn't even try playing this with a keyboard or a controller. And yeah, don't worry about the speed limit. I'm not so sure the word simulation applies to this game when the most efficient way to play is like this. There are a lot of little things that are annoying about Rig and Roll. The navigation system, for instance, which you need to pay to add to your truck, just shows you which turn to take next in the top left corner of the UI, and is often not accurate or timely enough, leading to missed exits. The trucks have a tendency to spin out, especially when you're blasting through traffic at 130 miles per hour. Oh god, get out of the way! Coming through! The menus and interfaces are clunky and janky in all the wrong proportions. Hitchhikers and roadside missions need you to slow down in time, so you'll have to spot them from far away or otherwise risk reversing into traffic. Certain menus freeze the game while loading, always making me fear that the game crashed. These long entry and exit drives into and out of the warehouses, which you have no control over, take way too long. The gas stations have variable pricing depending on region, and that is a cool detail that also doesn't matter because it's not like you'll strategically pick one gas station over another, and other than the inscrutable story requirements, the game isn't particularly difficult. Really, the challenge is just learning a particular flavor of weirdness in order to get where you need to go on time and efficiently. That's not so much playing the game right, as it's just learning its language. The elusive Monster Cup add-on introduces a dedicated racing tournament, with the warehouses dressed up to match. These races may or may not include dummy trailers, but they don't really add any new gameplay or difficulty. There's a lot of races. A lot of races. It'll take you about as long to finish the cup as it takes to finish the main story, but it's just race after race after race through several leagues until you win and hit this beauty of a cutscene. Yes, I was being chased by the cops when I finished the last race. That's why you can still hear the sirens. The Monster Cup can only start after you've completed the main story, so at least they don't interfere with each other.
I represent the Monster Cup Organizing Committee. I'd like to invite you to take part in the California Open Championship.
Was it worth it, tracking down a check copy of the game and figuring out how to load the save game of the Steam version into it, and then redoing the long and tedious final mission just so I could document this add-on? Yes, those hours and hours and hours truly are worth the 3 minutes of footage that I'm using in this video. I'm doing important historical work, or so I keep telling myself. For that same reason, I also managed to get my hands on a Russian copy of the game, lucked out with a seller from Kazakhstan on eBay. I know, I didn't expect my life to take these twists and turns either. I tried installing it to see the differences or get hilarious clips of the characters speaking in Russian, and naturally it also tried to put a spyware toolbar on my computer. About 2009 of it. But even though I was still able to use online activation with the serial key, I could not get the game itself to run without crashing on the main menu. A shame, yes, but it remains a valuable addition to my nearly complete collection of rig and roll variants. I have a problem. It's true. There's still some variants out there I don't have. Graphics! It's what makes a game look like... Well, it's what makes a game look, period. Now, even though Rig and Roll is one of the more recently released games I've covered on this channel, I'm always looking with a retrospective eye. I'm not gonna judge a 15-year-old game for not having the texture detail and ray tracing of the latest AAA Unreal Engine bore 'em up. With that in mind, this game looks... fine. The world is vast and detailed with a draw distance to match. The truck interiors are intricately modeled with functioning dials and lights. The cars in traffic aren't anything to write home about, but every truck you buy is faithfully recreated with great care, and while the damage model is a bit simplistic, with fenders just flopping about on a single pivot point, I prefer that over the trucks just being solid unbreakable blocks. I have a feeling that, had this game been released any time before 2006 looking like this, it would have been praised for its environments. The skyboxes in particular are very well done, with lighting that still impresses to this day, especially during sunrise and sunset. And the world is very cohesively designed. All the major California landmarks are there, from highways to winding mountain roads, deserts to the San Francisco Bay. There's almost always something to look at. Don't look too far though, because over there in the distance all you'll see is plain textured height map hills. The ocean isn't much of a looker either. But I think it does what it needs to do and is sufficiently varied and accurate and large to be a nice miniature representation of California. I've never been, but I've seen it in a movie once or twice. Billboards along the roads create a certain sense of place through the capitalist tradition of branding everything and anything, even if it's not always exactly clear what the billboard is advertising. You're given a nice selection of camera angles, even a bed's eye view. The UI is a bit weird though. It's mostly futuristic hologram stuff that feels jarringly anachronistic. The game is set in the far off future of the year 2014. It seems like solely to justify the holograms, because you wouldn't really be able to tell otherwise. Somebody just had a vision, goddammit, a vision of holographic computing. It's functional and help pages are available in-game, but especially the PDA and the truck company management interface are very dense and confusing. I do like the little photorealistic gas pump UI though. California is a famously sunny and dry state, but there is rain in the game. You can even access a weather prediction app accessible through your PDA. Though rain is rare, I had a rain spell that I think lasted several in-game weeks. That's climate change for you. The road wetness and reflections are quite nice, but the actual rain effect itself is often nearly invisible. I was hoping to encounter some snow up in the mountains, but never did, so I have to assume there's no snow in the game at all. Where the game is really lacking though is in the character models and animation. You can tell this was Soft Lab's first real attempt at making people. They're just skin-colored blobs with dead eyes and terrible lip sync. The cutscenes are clumsily directed, full of awkward pauses, and the voice acting is mostly abysmal.
Do you know that Matthew worked for Storm Express?
I don't think so. He's been in Flat Soul for as long as I can remember.
There are almost no lines whatsoever that are accurately transcribed in the captions, which are full of spelling errors anyway. You occasionally get binary yes or no dialogue options, but they amount to just accepting or rejecting a mission. The sound design for the rest of the game is complicated. The trucks sound like trucks, so it's got that covered, but overall it's janky and obviously unfinished. There is the weird stuff like the police sirens being an ambient sound regardless of cop presence, and the sound mixing in the story cutscenes is downright atrocious.
Service station half a mile south down the 101. Guys at the truck stop there, let us use it for free. They're old friends.
But you know what? You won't really be paying attention to any of that because Rig and Roll has a certain vibe. A very unique and distinct vibe that sets it apart from any other game out there, let alone other truck simulators. About 10% of that vibe comes from the game world, from the experience of trucking, from the bizarre and ridiculous story and hilariously awful voice acting. The other 90% comes to you through the radio. Because Rig and Roll has what may possibly be the greatest royalty-free licensed soundtrack in the history of video games. I am entirely serious. Music supervisor Todd M. Fay was asked by 1C Company to compile exactly 100 songs that would reflect the diverse and vibrant culture of California, and knocked it out of the park. I'm gonna have to be a little careful here because the copyright goblins are right up on that ridge. Their scopes aimed squarely at this video's advertising suitability. But the game's radio is absolutely a standout thing about it. Supremely enjoyable and memorable, if not always for the right reasons. There are 5 radio stations in total, each with their own distinct jingles and idents. Harsh Radio is your rock and roll and punk.
Harsh Radio.
In your ear, hissing softly like an insect digging in, telling you to look around at what you got. Tell yourself that the TV always got it messed up. Yeah, the TV always got it messed up. Yeah, it messed me up.
What happens when my reason breaks? Met this girl, I thought I'd really rate her. Looked so hot, I knew I had to date her. Though my sights were set on something greater, I bet it wasn't even what I later. You're special, I know this, but why are your friends so gorgeous? Hey, maybe we can make 3, then we can all be happy. Have some dinner, make the lights all dim. 3 of us together, yeah, everybody wins.
Give it up, let down your guard. Your attitude won't get you very far. Take my hand, let's run away. And if you're scared, meet me halfway there. No need to discuss it. We're free to bust it up. Believe me, it feels good to smash it, bust it up.
Dance Trance Radio does what it says on the box.
Dance Trance Radio.
Radio California is hip-hop and R&B.
Radio California.
What you want, got just what you need. Down for you, if you get down for me. You need ends, baby, drop a dime. When I come through, I'm always right on time. Got to give it up. Got to give it up. All around the world, for you to show it down. I love my dogs. That's right. I love my riches. What's that about? None of your business. Cause I turns it out.
Always first, never last. The tab this bad. Mash the gas with a bag full of cash and a jag with a rag and a walk. When baby get mad, she quick to get in. Had that host has got a sidekick. Never snitch, ghetto rich, do or die. The kind of chick I can chill, I hang it with. Either we rolling in her wheels or in my. Doing 90 up in the fast lane, sipping liquor. Thinking of ways to get richer, baby girl, I'm with you. I picture me and you rolling to the end of time. What's mine is yours and yours is for surely mine.
Rolling in your boyfriend's Escalade. Off up in the club, frontin' like you're paid. Rockin' Gucci just for show. But I already know by the tag on your backside that it's straight back to the store. You're telling lies. Telling lies. Telling lies. You're telling lies. Telling lies. Telling lies. Telling lies.
I'm incredible, just like the Hulk. Look in my eyes, you can see the result. Don't need to be cocky, already got a hobby. Rolling like Rocky in the black Maserati.
Superhighway Radio is classic trucker tunes, country western, and folk music.
Superhighway Radio.
There's rattlers and tattlers and born-again tractors back in Oklahoma. There's chicken hogs and cakewalks and bow hunts and podunks back in Oklahoma. Well, the truck stops here and I'm glad to be near my home in Oklahoma.
We met one day in New Orleans in a bar on Bourbon Street.
Just one look and I was took. I knew you were for me.
I'm a Bayou boy.
I'm a Dixie lady.
If we can't have love, we'll both go crazy. We're not supposed to be together, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Cause we just can't stay away
From a Bayou boy
and a Dixie lady.
I feel sorry for the teachers who tried to deal with me. 'Cause I ran with the wild crowd we were born to be. We didn't take instruction, and we broke all the rules. A pack of hellions tearing up that school. I was born a rebel, that's part of who I am. Being told what I should do is something I can't stand. On the road, like a Dust Bowl refugee. Way behind me, Oklahoma. Up ahead, my destiny.
Single woman, 2 kids and a dog, wandering around a week in a fog. Between work and family, I never find no time for me. But on Friday night, I cure these blues when I put on my dancing shoes. My dancing shoes, my dancing shoes. If I cure for the workday blues, you know I'm done paying my dues when I put on my dancing shoes.
And finally, Pacific FM is what some nerd in a suit would call adult contemporary, along with a nice dose of Latin beats that they didn't have anywhere else to put.
Pacific FM.
She's been popping up the pills, wishing she was in the hills. If you listen, you can hear her cry. Life is breaking me down, and I'm here on the ground. Catch me 'cause I'm going crazy. Mira quién soy, un
Entre amigos, entre amigos. ¡Que gocen!
Size 11 tennis shoe. She's in pink and he's in blue, and they think about it, but can't talk about it. Laundry, soap, and baby food. She's a model in the nude, and they think about it, but can't talk about it.
The music is simultaneously hilarious, terrible, absurd, and sometimes genuinely great. A good third of the songs are obvious low-effort royalty-free rip-offs of well-known early 2000s pop music.
Try not to forget about that last jazz cigarette. It was gone, I swear it slipped my mind again. It's not that I don't think about you, I'm not trying to.
And then there are the songs which are actually quite catchy. Earworms even. Again, I wish I could play more of it here, but if you are interested in sampling the entire thing, check out this playlist helpfully compiled by a dedicated rig and roll fan by the name of Mile 1060. In spite of the high entertainment value of the music, the radio system is far from perfect. The songs aren't at all randomized, for one. Every radio just cycles through the songs in the same order every single time. Going to the pause menu will stop the music entirely and start the next song when you resume. A small blessing there is that there are dedicated hotkeys to go forward and back a song if you wish, which is especially useful when you want to listen to Relampagos by Lisa Carbe for the 5th time in a row, or skip that one song that sounds kinda catchy until midway you realize the lyrics are super transphobic. The music is also not at all identified, either in-game, in the credits, or even in the game's files. Here again, we can thank Mile 1060 for doing the hard work of figuring out the attribution of the artists. You can drop your own songs in a folder to make a custom radio channel, but why would you do this when the game's built-in music is already so damn entertaining? And finally, not all versions of the game contain every song. I realized this when listening to Radio California on the Steam version of the game and noticed that there were only 3 whole songs on that station. That didn't seem right, so installing one of my many disc-based versions of the game gave me the songs back and some other songs I didn't even know were missing. Once again, draconian music licensing terms deprive us of good tunes. That's another way rig and roll is like Grand Theft Auto. But the GTA radio influence doesn't stop there. What is radio without untalented men talking nonsense and doing clumsy ad reads?
You know how I feel inadequate sometimes?
I feel inadequate most of the time.
It's because of my car. It's just not powerful enough.
I know. I want to be more powerful, but what can I do?
Install a new engine, of course. Check out the CS lineup of car engines and make a bold step into manhood.
The Alistair and Moe show runs randomly and occasionally between songs on every radio station and stars a pair of wannabe losers called Alistair and Moe, with co-host Karen and a producer that occasionally pipes in.
So, let's talk about my dog.
Please, dear God, let's not.
Yes, Karen, let's not. I'll do 10 catchphrases over the next 60 seconds, but please, let's talk about something else.
That ain't right!
Oh, come on. You like dogs, Alistair.
I love dogs that look like dogs, not like frilly rats.
Jinxie doesn't look like a rat.
He kind of does.
Rat's got that disgusting long skinny tail, but Jinx, he's got a fluffy little one that's so cute when he runs.
We are actually talking about your dog, aren't we?
Yes. Anyway, I had to take him to the vet last night.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, thank you. Wait, oh, no, not like that. I mean, he was just shivering the other day and...
We're done talking about your dog.
No, we're not. You're being very rude.
How about we stick to the format? Where does it say that we need to talk about your pets? You're not even supposed to talk about anything.
Mo.
It's the Alistair and Moe show, and you're just the chick.
Mo, shut up.
I'm sorry, Karen. I don't know how that...
Compared to the awkward story and dialogue written by Softlab, it seems clear to me that, just as for the music, 1C Company hired some professionals to do the radio show. It's no Laszlo Jones, but the Alistair and Mo show was clearly inspired by GTA's satirical take on shock jock talk radio and is just as replete with crude jokes, casual misogyny, and racism, while still having shockingly high production value. And there is a lot of it.
So, drunk driving.
Yes, those drunk driving bastards.
Governor Wiseman's plan to reduce penalties for drunk driving is under fire. Wiseman said earlier, with our budget crisis, our courts are overworked and our prisons overfilled. We must act. One of the measures he proposed was reducing penalties for drunk driving to a simple ticket.
Jane Schultz of the Sober California Foundation responded, quote, "With 3 DUIs on his own record, Governor Weissman can hardly be expected to realize the severity of this offense. He's making a horrible mistake, and he must be stopped at all costs. In fact, maybe he should just drink and drive some more."
That ain't right!
I hate that catchphrase.
You know, I agree. I think drunk driving is way overblown. When's the last time you've been on the freeway? I see plenty of sober people out there every day that drive so much worse than me driving drunk. It's all about the skill.
But you can't argue that drunk driving impairs your skill, can you?
Well, yes, but if you're an excellent driver to begin with, it just bumps you down to good, so...
That's not the point. California is out of money. We can't pay our judges, we can't pay our clerks, and our prisons have 4 inmates per bunk.
And only 3 of them are having a good time.
That ain't right.
In addition to extended bits that help fill out the deep, deep lore of the rig and roll world, Alistair and Mo also read out advertisements for many of the game's fictional brands, reminding the player to check out their PDA or equip their truck with a bigger engine. And they'll occasionally drop news stories which can contain information related to potential quests or developments going on in the main story. Their tone can shift wildly between being shock jock dickheads and sincere and straightforward news readers. Love 'em or hate 'em, the show only adds to the high amplitude of the game's vibes. And you gotta admit, their dumb catchphrase is pretty memorable.
That ain't right!
All in all, while the radio is a big, very important part of the game's experience, the rest of the world and the offbeat story leave a very strong impression of a uniquely crafted experience. It's just this weird and fascinating view of Americana through the lens of Siberian broadcasting hardware makers. You know what I mean? Does anyone know what I mean? Could anyone know what I mean? Like, some of the gas stations use Shell and 76 branding, but I could find no mention of these being officially licensed. But then there are also obvious fake parody brands like Marx Jr. It's this bizarre combination of a total and deep understanding of what America is and being completely oblivious to the nuances of it or incapable of recreating it. It's the gaming equivalent of a low-budget 80s action movie filmed in Luxembourg, starring some D-list washed-up actor doing low-speed car chases in what is supposed to be, but obviously is not, Los Angeles, and I love it for that. This deep dive into gaming obscurity is brought to you by Patreon! It helps me pay the bills.
And now, breaking news. According to reports we have just received, a UFO has been spotted in the desert area west of Palmdale. Several of our listeners called in, claiming to have seen a huge ball of light floating in the air not high off the ground. As one of our callers described it, it looks so fantastic I almost dropped my lunch. We will keep you updated on any developments.
Meet Nick Armstrong, truck driver extraordinaire and Ryo Hazuki cosplayer. He's just arrived in California with a past that's not so much mysterious as entirely non-existent. The original version of the character, named Nikolai Perepelov, is explicitly a Russian man who's trying to make it big in the US of A, but Nick gets none of that baggage. As is the fashion for cutthroat capitalist America, upon arrival to the state, Nick is immediately gifted an entire trucking company and a truck to go with it. Look, they even made a logo for him. None of this is ever explained. Set in the distant future of 2014, the California of Rig and Roll is a dystopian world where all cargo hauling is centralized through a single monopolistic entity called the California Commercial Warehouse Alliance. Everything else is pretty much the same as real California though. Except for the holograms, they're still waiting on those. Here is a spoiler warning. Warning? Spoilers. I'm going to spoil the entire story because, as I had mentioned earlier, getting through it without assistance or prior knowledge is nearly impossible due to gameplay quirks, and I want to document it. So if you want to go in fresh, here's the time code to skip it all. That being said, there's tons and tons of side quest stories, some of which are quite elaborate, some of which interlink and weave their own stories and have unique rewards. This is a large, comprehensive world with more characters than I could possibly list in a single video, or even experience in a single playthrough. So as much as this may spoil the main story, it's not possible for me to spoil the whole game. On with the show. Nick arrives in the city of Oxnard with his local friend Matt, who gives him the lay of the land, explaining where to get his truck serviced and get trucker news and all that kind of stuff.
There's a service station half a mile south down the 101. The guys at the truck stop there, let us use it for free. They're old friends.
Showing him his new office, Matt very briefly introduces Nick to his secretary Pamela, whereupon Nick asks only the most relevant of questions.
Is she married?
Footloose and fancy free.
After showing Nick the incredible Californian holographic computers, he takes him outside to meet Big Crane.
And here's the company slob, Big Crane. Say hello to Mr. Nicholas Armstrong, will you?
Nick.
Welcome to California, Nick.
Who is supposedly the company mechanic? The relationships between all these characters aren't always clear. This is the kind of story that neither shows nor tells sometimes. I'm doing my best to compensate. Not long after, having taken just a short drive, Nick encounters Crane by the side of the road. His truck's broken down and he needs to borrow your lug wrench.
Can't find my lug wrench. You got a spare?
Nick, friendly guy that he is, helps him out without hesitation or any concern for potential consequences. After having done a few jobs, the stakes are raised very quickly. Matt calls in with an urgent request. His friend Dorothy is being chased by some thugs, and he's out of state for some reason, so he needs Nick to come to her rescue. Nick answers this request the only way he knows how.
Try to reach her as fast as I can. Is she pretty?
Oh, by the way, in this playthrough I had picked up a hitchhiker and promised to bring her where she needs to go, but like I said, that would block progress in the main story.
Get out.
What? But why?
No reason, just go.
Jerk.
We got to groove just a little bit, got to move just a little bit.
Okay, maybe not that friendly a guy after all. Arriving at the bar where Dorothy is hiding out, Nick immediately runs into her. Or rather, she runs into Nick. She's being chased by a guy and, some kind of other guy entirely? The chase commences, and if your truck isn't upgraded enough by this point, this happens. If you do successfully outrun them, Nick exchanges pleasantries with Dorothy, and she gets out of the truck in the middle of the highway.
Thanks, you saved my life. What's your name?
Nick Armstrong. I hope this isn't the last time we meet.
Dorothy O'Leary. I have to go now. See ya.
Don't worry, we'll be seeing her again later. This is not main story, just a hitchhiker side quest, but here's Vladimir.
Hey, dude. Take a musician to Palmdale, will ya?
Who gave you the bright idea to thumb at the exit of a tunnel?
What do you mean? Who gave you the idea? Ain't nobody gives ideas to me. I gives ideas to myself. Don't you recognize me?
No. Should I?
Of course. I'm Vladimir. Vladimir Black, the Cold War. We're a famous band.
Cold War? Never heard of it.
And you don't listen to the radio much, dude. All of America knows us.
Okay. What do you need in Palmdale, Vladimir?
Actually, my name's Mike. Vladimir Black is just a stage name. Palmdale, or Lancaster to be exact, is the place where the great Frank Zappa started his musical career.
And there goes Vladimir.
That's it, Nikolai. Stop here. You're cool. Come see us perform someday.
Okay, but the name's Nick.
You know, I've got an idea. We should try writing a song in Russian. It's the latest thing nowadays. Russian this, Russian that. It's almost a guaranteed hit.
It would look kind of strange for a black man to sing in Russian.
Oh, relax. It'll be cool.
I think maybe it would help Vladimir if he read the news. He might reconsider this obsession in light of recent events. While just cruising, Crane calls Nick to let him know that nobody's heard from Matt in a while. Strange. But Nick is a busy man with lots of trucking to do and an empire to build, so he keeps his head down and his eyes on the road. Until a few nights later when he's called by a detective Mark Metzger.
Detective Mark Metzger, Oxnard Police Department. Mark Metzger, Oxnard Police Department.
Who wants him to stop by the Oxnard police station as soon as possible. Again, strange. In Oxnard, the detective questions him about Matthew.
Mr. Armstrong, do you know if your friend had any enemies?
I don't think so, no. He never mentioned anything like that. Look, can't you just tell me what's going on?
Mr. Tierson's vehicle was found on the outskirts of the city, riddled with bullet holes and torched.
Oh no, my dear friend Matthew, who I know so much about, who I've gone on so many adventures with, maybe. I hope he's okay. The detective lets Nick go, but asks him not to leave the state and be available for further questioning.
You can go, but I have to ask you not to leave the state for the time being.
Also, I have a feeling the original Russian version of this cutscene went on for just a little longer. Sometime later, Nick's called by a shifty character who claims to know what's going on with Matt. Where did these people keep finding Nick's phone number? After driving around a bit and using the game's clunky interface to figure out which of the game's many bars the stranger wants to meet at, walking through its extremely reflective wooden door, Nick meets him, and he immediately demands payment for the info.
You called me?
Yes, I have some information, but I expect to be compensated.
I'll pay you if it's worth anything.
Fair enough. Do you know that Matthew worked for Storm Express?
He drops a bunch of company names that mean nothing to me and implies that Matt was involved in some shady business, and points Nick to their boss, a fella by the name of Jack Murdoch. The meeting with Murdoch mission is one of those that requires you to be at a certain place at a certain time, even though the game does a very poor job of telling this to you. If you arrive early, this happens.
Hi fellas. Jack around?
Hi yourself. Do I know you from someplace?
I don't know. Name's Nick, by the way. So what about Jack? Gotta talk to him.
Mr. Murdoch's a busy man. What makes you think he wants to hear whatever you got?
That's for him to decide, isn't it? Or are you his secretary?
Come back tomorrow. Mr. Murdoch will probably be here about the same time.
You better have something worth his time. I don't know about Mr. Murdoch, but I don't like you already.
Okay, come back tomorrow.
See you then, cowboy.
I've seen that guy.
Returning to the same place after driving in circles a bit, with exactly 30 seconds left on the clock, Nick confronts Murdoch and his dangerously sharp goatee. Knowing he has very little leverage, Nick bets his truck in a race against Murdoch in exchange for information about Matthew. What has that boy gotten himself into?
I heard you're a racer. I'll bet my rig against any information you have on him. You choose the track. The rig's out there. You can see for yourself.
I seen it. You better go kiss your ride goodbye if you're gonna go through with this. We'll do it in Atascadero. Ron, you're coming with me. I'll need someone to bring back Mr. Armstrong's truck.
Wait, the guy in the weird kung fu fantasy outfit is just named Ron? That's a fabulously realistic name for that kind of dude. These kinds of missions are trivial because my truck is upgraded with a bigger engine and nitro boosters, and also the game removes all traffic while the race is on. If you're wondering why my cab is shaking, it's because that's the way the game sometimes lets me know my truck has at least 1% damage. It can be a little distracting. Murdoch tries to recruit Nick into his operation, but Nick is a man of principle and just wants to find his friend.
I think you have some talking to do.
I am tough guy now. Okay, I'll keep my word. Mr. Tierson owed us a pretty good chunk of change. Nice folks that we are, we offered to forget the debt if he brings us one of Topo's shipments to us. Topo's going under anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered either way. But your friend was just like you, it seems. He was stuck up, didn't want to play ball.
So you decided to just kill him?
What do you think we are, a bunch of murderers? Besides, how would I get my money back if I killed him? I bet he's just laying low somewhere far away, thinking we'll just forget about him. Well, we'll find him sooner or later, you can rest assured.
Is that so? What was that cargo you wanted Matthew to bring you instead of Mr. Topokanaki?
That's none of your business. I remember agreeing to tell you everything I knew about Matthew, so there you are. Get away from me.
Clearly Nick has found himself smack in the middle of the seedier side of California's trucking underworld. Topo, or Topo Kanaki, a name I can find no explanation for, and a character we've heard about once or twice but do not know, is apparently the friendly old proprietor of Flat Soul Shipping, getting run out of business by all the criminal enterprises. Nick resolves to go see him soon.
What can I help you with, Nick? Don't you know we're on the verge of bankruptcy? Yeah, my property's gonna be auctioned off any day now.
Nick's not so much concerned with this guy going bankrupt as he is with Matt's whereabouts.
Last order? I don't know, some small delivery probably. I can't even remember the last time we shipped a full load. Why?
Mr. Topokanaki, let me get this straight. Matthew is my friend, and I know he got into big trouble trying to cover for you, and I want to help him. And for that, I need honest answers from you. I know you got into some kind of mess, but maybe I can help you if you tell me what this is all about.
This investigation is laying bare some sketchy and downright illegal things happening on the highways, and Nick won't stop until he's got it all figured out. Is he getting in a bit over his head, though?
They demand complete discretion, and the penalties they laid down in case anything happens, well, they'd ruin a Rockefeller. They won't even specify the destination until the last moment. The only person I can trust with this is Matthew, not Cochran, not anybody else. Now Matthew's gone, God knows where, and I'm all but done for. But I'm willing to risk it one last time if you agree to take this order. Looks like it's a good deal. Besides, it's the only link to Matthew we got.
Okay, I'll do it. How do I contact the client?
Hey, I'm still the boss around here, aren't I? The cargo's packed and ready to go. You can take it right now. Take the 126 towards Lebec. The client will contact you and tell you the rest. And watch your back, Nick.
This ends up being quite a long and elaborate mission. You take the trailer towards Lebec until Nick gets a call from one of Murdoch's boys telling him to pull over. Before he even gets a chance to respond, he gets called by Crane.
Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Not now, Crane. Somebody's chasing me.
Where are you?
I'm halfway to Lebec, hauling a full load.
We'll meet you at the Highway 5 interchange. Don't worry, we'll figure something out.
Okay, I'm counting on you.
Welcome back to Alistair and Moe. A drunk driving teenager in Merced kills 4 at a street fair.
4 pedestrians, including 2 newlyweds, are dead and 12 more are injured. A horrific scene at what was supposed to be a fairy tale day of show.
The Alistair and Moe show can be a bit of a bummer sometimes, huh? Anyway, because we're now in the middle of a chase, all the traffic disappears again and the highway is ours. We get another call from a man called Dakota, who offers his help, and boy does he come equipped. Freed from his pursuers, the client calls Nick with further instructions.
Continue along Highway 5 to the truck stop. Follow the signs and don't change course. I'll contact you again when you approach the truck stop.
Got it. Somebody just tried to hijack the cargo. Think you can explain what's going on?
Did you tell anybody about the cargo?
I'd say things are starting to get dangerous for our hero, but Nick's been getting shot at almost since the very beginning of the game. He meets up with Dorothy and Crane. Dorothy reveals that she knows Dakota and trusts him, and Nick just completely glosses over it. They offer no useful help, and Nick goes back on the way to the drop-off point.
See you at the truck stop.
But not before immediately getting arrested by the police. I may have been rushing during this mission. Nick receives further instructions from the mysterious client, but before heading to Palmdale, he meets up with Crane and Dorothy one more time, frustrated at how he's being tracked. Crane discovers how. Off to Palmdale we go.
I'm a Bayou boy.
I'm a Dixie lady.
Leave the delivery sheet in the cab and unhook the trailer.
So here's my company. It's all yours now. We're in the black with $22,000 on the balance sheet.
Apparently we're getting Flat Soul Shipping as part of the deal? Topokanaki sure is a generous character, huh? This has 0 gameplay consequences, by the way. You don't actually receive another branch or more trucks. The plot is starting to confuse me a bit. Characters are just appearing and disappearing like things that just appear and disappear. And everyone seems to be in on things that I am not. We're not any closer to finding Matt either.
All right, well, if you need anything, you know where to find me. I owe you one.
Nick, it's the police again. They say they want you to come down to the station as soon as possible. What happened?
No idea. I guess I should go ask them.
So we meet again, Mr. Armstrong, and this time it's under even more interesting circumstances.
Is this about Matthew?
No, it's about you. Do you recognize this object, Mr. Armstrong?
Of course. That's a lug wrench. Trucker shouldn't leave home without one.
Wait a minute. A lug wrench?
This object was found yesterday next to the body of a man named Jack Murdoch. As far as I know, your relationship with him was not exactly friendly, right?
Okay, so my lug wrench, which I lent to Crane earlier, was used to kill our old frenemy Murdoch. This plot is getting thick. Detective What's-His-Name is about to arrest Nick for murder when he gets interrupted with some news. Nick has nerves of steel. He's tangled up in obvious criminal activity. His friend has been missing for a week. He keeps getting shot at. He's facing jail time for a murder he did not commit, and he doesn't break a sweat.
You're free to go, Mr. Armstrong, but I must ask that you not leave the state for the time being. We'll be in touch.
Everything's coming up, Armstrong. That's Dakota's truck leaving, by the way. Here comes Crane. And thankfully, Nick has the sense to ask him a very important question.
Hey, Crane, where's my lug wrench?
What?
You borrowed my lug wrench, remember?
Oh, of course. I gave it to Matthew a while back. I thought he returned it to you. I guess he didn't, huh? No big deal. I'll buy you a new one.
Forget it, I have a spare. Listen, do you know this Dakota guy?
Frank? What does he have to do with it?
Can you just stop asking questions and answer mine for now, please?
Yes, Nick, you absolute king. Set those boundaries, communicate those needs. I'm so proud of you. It seems like Nick has a strong but mysterious ally in this Dakota character and his Batman-grade truck. Wonder why he's looking out for Nick.
Bottom line, he's quite a phantom. Don't know what's so tough about him, but I heard that Storm Express stays away from him for some reason. That's all I know. And one more thing, Nick. Since we're talking here, I'm quitting.
Now, Crane never seemed like the cleverest of fellas to me, but I'm giving him some points for seeing all that's going on and deciding to get the hell out. No points for leaving Matt up to his fate, though. The story pauses here for a bit, so I keep myself entertained in other ways. Pam gives Nick a call right after he, not I, crashed his truck trying to get a cool camera angle. He's remarkably calm, all things considered.
Hello, Pam. What's up?
She tells me that a Mr. Cunning wants a ton of cash from us for losing his cargo. So off to Nick Trucking headquarters we go, and Mr. Cunning is...
I've got very good news for you, Mr. Armstrong. We've decided to forget about your debts.
An agent from the Matrix?
Explain who it is you are, and why there are people trying to kill me for your cargo.
I work for the government.
No way.
We've been trying to get a handle on a certain criminal group engaged in the production and distribution of a powerful new synthetic hallucinogen. They've been using a transport service as their cover. The components of the drug are harmless and used in both production sector and in everyday life, so tracking down the criminals and their laboratory has proved to be quite difficult.
Boy, they really went all out with the story in this truck sim game, huh?
The plan was to lure the criminal group into stealing the cargo and then follow Matthew into their base, but something went wrong along the way. Matthew probably got himself killed. The delivery passed on to you, and you managed to lose both us and the criminals.
So the drug makers and the feds are playing an intricate game of cat and mouse, but a third party has snuck in between the chaos to steal the cheese, as it were.
That was the work of an unknown third party. Some lone wolf just faked the documents and snatched the trailer right from under everyone's noses.
Oh, okay. So you lost your chance to find the criminals' hideout, but me and my friends took most of the damage. And now these mobsters will probably just kill me.
Now, you're not in a mafia movie, Nick. They won't risk exposing themselves like that, although to be on the safe side, we would recommend you leave the state, at least for now.
Now Nick has got one set of cops telling him not to leave the state and another set of cops telling him to get the hell out. You really can't win with these people. But Nick is no coward. He is fueled by the power of friendship. Even if it's friendship with a group of highly suspicious people who he's only known for 3 weeks and have caused him nothing but grief. After some more days of, would you know it, trucking, Nick finally gets a call from one of the many mystery men in his life, Dakota.
Frank, right? Glad to hear you at last.
We need to talk in private.
Nick once again boosts his way to Oxnard, showing us exactly what he thinks of the cops, and taking what we in the biz call the trucker's shortcut. Dakota, it turns out, is just another Fed, which doesn't make Nick very happy.
Oh, I see. Another federal agent. What did you want to talk about?
Dakota is after the mysterious black truck of the third party who got away with the drug supplies. Switching voice actors mid-sentence, he brings up a journalist's report on killings and robberies on the highway that mention the same black truck.
Have you read the articles about the road killings and robberies by Monica Delancey?
Yeah, I remember it.
Don't you find it strange that in those reports there was mention?
I think you should ask the author of the article, not me.
How about we ask her together?
Okay. It's always a pleasure to talk with an educated woman.
Nick really just has one thing on his mind at all times, and it's not trucking. Returning to his old voice, Dakota introduces Nick to Monica, the journalist in question. Some interesting facts are revealed here. Nick recalls the black truck having the same Cobra mud flaps as Matthew's truck. How fascinating. All the attacks take place on the same stretch of highway, and the surviving truckers all report losing track of time. Suspecting Matthew, Dakota's plan is to mention him in Monica's next article so as to lure him out of hiding.
Do it. If Matthew is involved, I have to meet with him no matter what. If it isn't him, then it doesn't matter either way.
But surely our good friend Matthew can't be the mastermind. He gave us an entire trucking company after all. Again, Nick must wait and do some regular trucking, but before long he gets a call from Matt himself and is so happy to hear from his old friend.
Matthew! My God! I knew you were alive! What have you gotten yourself into? We'll get you out of this. Promise.
Not now, Nick. Let's meet in Red Rock Canyon on the 14th.
Okay, wait for me there, you hear? Don't go anywhere.
You bet.
He wants to meet up, though I find the tone of that "you bet" to be awfully suspicious. Nearing Red Rock Canyon, Nick gets a call from Crane, seemingly the only one with a brain, who warns him that it's an obvious trap.
Wait, Nick, it's gotta be a setup. Don't you understand? They're gonna shoot you.
He's right, and the game's story levels up and reminds us that this ain't your daddy's truck simulator. In case you're confused, the black truck with the Cobra mud flaps was indeed driven by our bestie Matthew, who heroically sacrificed himself by blocking a goddamn rocket, even though he's the one who lured us to the canyon. I also love how as soon as the cutscene ends, the game just resumes as normal with no reaction from Nick or any other characters. It takes a solid 5 minutes before the game gives you any kind of response to what just happened.
He shielded me from the rocket and got blown up instead.
Damn it. Now the hunt is on, and we just lost one of our only witnesses.
Witness? He was my friend.
And that's that. Dakota needs to think it over. Nick, having just lost his best friend in the whole wide world who also coincidentally trapped him in the middle of a statewide criminal conspiracy, mourns the only way he can. By trucking. Later on, he gets a call from another mysterious stranger. California's really infested with them. They're holding Dorothy and Crane hostage in exchange for our company. I mean, our trucking company. They don't just want to hang out. It just never ends with these people, does it?
Do what you're told, and they will be let free.
Nick remains unfazed, cool, calm, and happens to buy a sick new truck while he waits for the next story event to trigger. Nice flames, huh? They make it go faster. While perfectly following traffic laws in a small town, Nick gets a call from Monica, the journalist we met earlier. I kind of feel like a part of the story is missing here, but she's tracked down the bad guy's hideout, the drug labs that the feds were looking for. Coordinating with Dakota, Nick tries to figure out a way to get into the hideout and save his friends. This guy's always saving his friends.
Nick, there's a 20-foot high rock and armored gates. We're gonna have to use helicopters at least.
I just spoke with John.
Nick did not just speak with John. The story cohesion is falling apart here near the end. Feels like Soft Lab maybe needed another half a decade or so to polish it all.
Lot of hell. Let's show them what we got.
Nick meets up with Dakota and John, who I don't recall meeting at all. The plan is intricate, complex, sophisticated. It's some over-the-top Fast and Furious stuff, folks. Jumping trucks to take down buildings. I'm all for it.
This is ridiculous. Oh well. Let's go.
Oh, and by the way, for this mission we are given the Cheetah, an absurd high-speed rocket-powered truck that appears nowhere else in the game. And even though the cutscene already gave us a time limit, the stakes are raised once more.
The Cheetah's defense system just detected an abnormal activity. It's a countdown, Nick!
The Cheetah's a pretty sick truck, actually. Has an entirely unique and futuristic interior, too. Unfortunately, it's also terribly fragile, and the road to the gorge is winding and narrow, making it easy to damage the truck enough that you can't complete the mission. Dropping a save right before it starts, and multiple ones as the mission proceeds, is highly advised, because you'll be doing this a lot before you finally nail it. If a cop sees you crossing the double yellow lines, they'll initiate a chase too, wasting your precious time. After some slow driving in your very fast truck, you find a secret access and then do some off-roading.
Dance with me, baby, dance all night. We can rock the party most every night. Dance with me, baby, it's alright. Keep the party burning.
Near the lab, we join up with John and Dakota and we learn why the game took so long to develop. Yeah, this is what I would and should expect from professional simulator developers. Now it's Nick's turn. Oh right, do not jump straight into the explosive barrels. Lesson learned. Also make sure you hit the ramp with enough speed, because it's the far off future of 2014 and they've got laser mines. You're supposed to not go too fast and veer right to hit the supporting cables, at which point the entire building collapses spectacularly. It really is beautifully excessive. Crane and Dorothy are fine, and we all decide to celebrate by eating at a local 60 Miles branded franchised establishment.
Why did you have to tear everything down? It was such a cozy place.
Well, we superheroes are bold people, so maybe next time I'll just leave you with the villains if you like them so much.
I'll be right back. Nick, I ordered the double pork. Yours is the regular.
I guess we've hit the end now, but there do still seem to be some puzzle pieces missing, right?
While you were doing your thing, I was hard at work and did some procurement.
That's interesting. May I?
Be my guest. By the way, you can tell your bosses they owe me a Purple Heart. I broke a nail fighting bad guys. That should count for something, right?
I'll be damned.
What is it?
It seems that the real owner of Storm Express was Cochran. Looks like he disposed of Murdoch when he stopped being useful and tried to frame you for the murder.
Shock! Twist! It was Crane all along!
I was right. Matthew found out about him. Tried to destroy the chemicals and save the truckers who got attacked on the cursed Highway 108. That explains why the survivors saw the black truck. Matthew must have raced his rig by them to blow off the green mist. That's a smart idea, I must say.
Dorothy, did Crane see you with this folder?
Yeah, I showed it to him.
Damn, that could just as well have been your death warrant.
We have to catch Crane before he gets away.
Okay, brace yourselves, alright? After all the things we've seen, all the adventures we've had, all the unnecessary building collapse animation simulation we just went through, Softlab has one last memorable moment for us. I want you to sit down, get comfy, take a deep breath, and just witness it. Incredible, unbelievable, jaw-dropping, and followed directly by an extremely boring chase mission.
We have 5 minutes at the most before he hacks the weapons.
Time for a commercial.
Boss, I need a raise.
Oh no, not again. Get rid of those headaches. Purchase Freight Manager, the software that runs your company.
Well, that's Crane defeated then.
Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, I'm pleased to announce today that the title of Trucker of the Year and the Golden Bison Prize, amounting to $500,000, this year goes to Nicholas Armstrong, a man who over a short period of time managed to show us that he was worthy of our respect, that he wouldn't succumb to mafia schemes, and managed to pull a win against all odds.
And that is the story of Nick Armstrong. Hero, friend, trucker. Say goodbye to Monica, Dorothy, and the cheetah because you'll see none of them again. That's right, you don't even get the cool but kinda useless super truck. There's not even any cheats to unlock it. Having concluded this adventure, all that's left for Nick now is to cruise the open road, expand his logistics empire across the state, and maybe join and win a massive truck racing tournament. With a large and comprehensive likeness of California, traffic simulation, truck company management, a fully voiced storyline, and tons of side content, it seems Softlab simply bit off a lot more than it could chew. Tried to carry more cargo than its engine could pull. Rig and Roll did not live up to the developer's vision, but what a vision. In spite of having thrown dozens of hours into truck sims myself, mainly the SCS ones, they never quite clicked with me. Euro Truck and American Truck Sim, the apparent kings of that hill, have always been kind of disappointing and shallow to me in the simulation and vibes department. You're not fiddling with every single knob on the dash, you're not worrying about detailed maintenance, and you're not struggling with any of the administration or lifestyle issues of real truckers. They're not really simulations of a truck as a machine, nor of the experience of being a trucker. They are road trip simulators, first and foremost. Fantastic road trip simulators, to be sure, but they're more about just cruising on the roads and looking at landmarks than actually hauling cargo. The games just feel too sterile to me. They lack character. This is partially due to licensing requirements, like the lack of visible truck damage or even exhaust fumes, so that the precious truck brands don't get their feelings hurt. But it's also just the goals of the developers. Any semblance of trucker culture, something which has spawned numerous movies, music, and even parodies, has to be supplied entirely by the player. To be fair, millions of people clearly have enjoyed them, but I've always wanted something with a little more juice. Does Rig and Roll supply this juice? Kind of. A little bit. Not really. The attempt at incorporating trucker culture succeeds only in the radio soundtrack. Did you know that you can thank Tommy Tallarico for this too? His mother is very proud. Beyond that, the story is just too weird and bizarre to not take on a life of its own. It's exactly what you would think an overambitious Russian developer of broadcasting hardware would write. The game is also not much of a simulation. The adherence to the hard truck racing gimmick is misplaced and a distraction from the core gameplay, though there is something accidentally authentic about it being on a very strict timetable and having to rush through everything as a trucker. The driving model is also more arcade than sim. I suppose you could try to follow the rules of the road to make it more immersive, but you can play the game very effectively by being an absolute monster on the highway. Fines be damned. I do very much like some of the gameplay additions to the formula, like truck stops. Now, the implementations might be half-baked, literally unfinished, but the intent is valued. Same for hitchhikers.
This is perfect. Stop right here.
Okay then, good luck with your investigation. By the way, is it just me, or you look a lot like Hunter S. Thompson?
Yeah, that's right. I'm his illegitimate son.
Not.
Same for more direct consequences for breaking the law. This is one of the few truck sims where you can actually kind of, sort of, maybe pretend to be in Smokey and the Bandit. And of course, as is tradition for me at this point, I love the addition of a stupid story in a game you wouldn't expect to have it. In the end, I don't care if it's bad, if it messes with the rest of the flow of the game, if it limits my exploration instead of serving as an extended tutorial that introduces me to the game's world, I just eat it up. The cutscenes and voice acting are awful. The story turns make no sense and it's full of holes. The main character is mostly a bumbling idiot just being strung along, and it's incredibly charming and I love it. It immediately makes the game more appealing to me. Truck sims, or trucking games in general, can go one of two ways. You either go sterile, like the SES software games, or even worse, low-quality budget sims that have no character at all and don't even play well, or you go balls to the wall, over-the-top extreme, sometimes to the detriment of any semblance of realism or good taste.
Huh? Wrong. When redneck truckers get behind the wheel of big rigs, get out of the way.
Hey, mother truckers! Only $19.95.
Rig and Roll is one of those rare games that slots somewhere in the middle. Just look at these capital R romantic painted cover art variants. Name another truck sim that even tries to connect the player to the emotion of trucking like this. So, if you are a sicko like me and would like to enjoy the emotional roller coaster that is Rig and Roll in the modern age on our advanced futuristic yet non-holographic computers running Windows 10 or higher, how would you go about this? Well, it's on Steam. Nice and simple, right? I'm sure it's on some other digital storefronts too. Be warned, however, while the game ran fine for me with surprisingly few crashes for a train wreck like this, the Steam forums are full of people complaining about it not launching or running stably. These are the risks we take when playing old games. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, this version does not contain all the music. Disc-based versions are pretty plentiful in all regions, however, and from what I could tell, have most if not all the music included, so you could take your chances with one of those. As for the Monster Cup add-on, well, for that you'll have to have contacts in either Poland, Hungary, or the Czech Republic and get this specific variant of the game. In the interest of game preservation, I would absolutely be willing to upload this version of the game to archive.org if the base game weren't being actively sold right now. Hit me up if the current rights holder gets bored and the game becomes abandonware. Rig and Roll means a few different things to me. First off, when I discovered it, I was very early in my streaming, well, I'm not gonna say career, but when I was very new at it. I was streaming American Truck Sim because I wanted to give that game another chance, and fellow streamer Gamer Penguins gifted me Rig and Roll on a whim. I don't think he quite knew what the game was about, or how much it would alter the course of my life, but I will always be grateful to him. Rig and Roll was a revelation. There are weird games out there, and it's up to me to tell you all about them. This video was a long time coming, and if you're hearing my voice and seeing footage of the game right now, that means I overcame a heck of a lot to bring it to you. Should you play it? I mean, that's a decision between you and your gods. But if what I presented to you here sounds appealing, if you're the kind of person who's willing to trudge through some major jank to get an experience unlike any other, if your computer is willing to run it, then yeah, go for it. Put on your favorite radio station, fire up your weird holographic interface, hook up a trailer at your nearest CCWA warehouse, and take a drive. There's people with thousands of hours in this game who have explored every single side story, bought and upgraded every single truck, made Nick Trucking the premier logistics company in California, and paid millions and millions of dollars in traffic fines. And in some ways that says enough, doesn't it? In spite of its many flaws, there is a lot of game here. Some of it's good, some of it's garbage, all of it is interesting.